'Tis late December. The winds howl through the trees, carrying the biting chill of winter with them. The snow crunches beneath my boots as I make my way along the narrow, frozen path. Every step feels heavy, like the world is pressing down on me. The night is impossibly dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the moon, hidden behind a veil of clouds. The air is thick with the scent of pine and cold earth, but there's something more, something unsettling in the stillness. I don't know why I'm here, walking through the desolate forest, but I can't seem to turn back. The further I go, the deeper the silence grows. There's no sound, no birds, no animals, not even the wind in the trees. It's as if everything has stopped. But in the distance, barely visible through the trees, there's a house. An old house, barely standing, its silhouette a dark shape against the snow-covered ground. I don't know why, but I feel drawn to it. I approach slowly, each step heavier than the last. The wind picks up again, sending a shiver down my spine. But it's not just the cold that chills me. There's something else, something alive in the air, something watching me. The house looks abandoned, but something feels off. I can't explain it. The windows are broken, the paint chipped and faded, but the door, it's ajar, as if inviting me in. Without thinking, I step forward, my heart racing. The creak of the door as it swings open sends a wave of dread over me. Inside, the darkness is overwhelming, but there's an odd warmth in the air, as if the house is alive. The floorboards creak beneath my weight as I step inside. My breath comes out in visible puffs, the cold biting at my skin, but it's as if the house itself is holding onto its heat, refusing to let the cold in. The walls seem to close in on me, and I feel an unnatural pressure in the air, as though something unseen is watching me. And then I hear it, a faint whisper, so soft I almost can't make it out. It's coming from the far side of the room, a barely audible murmur, like someone is calling my name. But there's no one here. I freeze. Who's there? I whisper, my voice trembling. No answer, just the whisper, louder this time, unmistakably clear. It's my name. I take a step forward, but the floorboards groan under my weight. The house feels like it's alive, breathing, and every sound I make seems to stir something deep within it. I'm not alone here. A gust of cold air sweeps through the room, and the door slams shut behind me, trapping me inside. Panic surges through me, but I can't move. My body feels frozen, as though the house itself is holding me in place. Suddenly, a shadow flickers across the wall. I turn quickly, but there's nothing there, just darkness. My heart pounds in my chest. Get out, now. The whisper is louder this time, almost urgent, like a warning, and I can feel the walls of the house closing in around me. The air grows colder, and I can see my breath forming in front of me. The room is now unnaturally still, except for the whispers growing louder. I glance around, desperate for an escape, but there's no way out. The door is locked, and the windows are shattered, too far away for me to reach. And then, the house does something impossible. The walls shift. The room warps before my eyes. The ceiling lowering, the corners of the room stretching and distorting. I stumble back, my pulse racing, my breath shallow as the house seems to grow darker, colder. A door opens at the far end of the room, a dim light flickering from within. I don't know what it is, but I'm compelled to go toward it. The moment I step toward the door, the whispers stop. The silence is suffocating, the weight of it pressing down on me. But something else happens. The temperature drops even further, so cold now that my fingers feel numb. The light flickers again. Then suddenly, a scream, distant, echoing from somewhere deep within the house. It's the scream of a woman, desperate, filled with terror. My legs freeze, unwilling to move, and the door slams shut behind me with a deafening bang. I turn, and for a fleeting moment, I think I see someone standing in the dark hallway beyond the door. An indistinct figure, their face hidden in shadow. I can't breathe. I can't think. I turn toward the door, ready to run, but the room is no longer the same. It's changed. The walls are no longer the same. The floor is different. And now, standing in front of me, is an old mirror, its glass cracked and fogged over, as if it hasn't been touched in years. I don't want to look into it, but something draws me in. Slowly, I step closer, my hand trembling as I reach for the edge of the mirror. And when I look in, I don't see myself. I see her, a woman, pale, her eyes hollow, her mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. She's staring back at me, but her eyes, those eyes, they're filled with something ancient. Something wrong, something dark. I gasp, stumbling backward, but I can't tear my eyes away. You shouldn't have come. The voice is not mine. It's hers. Coming from the mirror, her hand, pale and bony, reaches out toward me, her fingers brushing against the glass, and I feel it. Cold, deathly cold, like her touch is freezing me from the inside out. And just before I turn to flee, the lights go out. The house is plunged into darkness. I hear the faintest shuffle of footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate. I spin around, but no one's there. Then I hear it. A laugh. A child's laugh. Soft, eerie, and distant, like it's coming from the attic. And that's when I understand. I'm not alone. I never was. The laugh echoes through the house, curling around me like a serpent. My heart thunders in my chest, my breath quick and shallow. I can't move. I can't think. The child's laughter rings in my ears, getting closer, but there's no one here. The air grows colder still, suffocating, pressing in on me from all sides. I try to reach the door, but my legs feel as though they're made of lead, each step dragging me deeper into the darkness. The walls are closing in. The floorboards creak beneath my feet, like they're groaning under the weight of something hidden, something waiting. My eyes dart around the room, desperate for any sign of light, but the darkness is absolute, thick and alive. I try to turn back, but the way is no longer the same. The house has shifted, the layout rearranged in the blink of an eye. Rooms I was just in are now blocked off, while new hallways appear out of nowhere. There is no way out. Then I hear it again. Hello. The voice is soft, a child's voice, so close now it feels like it's right next to me. My skin prickles as I spin around, my pulse racing, but there's nothing there. I stumble forward, panic rising in my throat. Every instinct tells me to run, to flee, but I'm trapped. My breath forms in front of me, thick and heavy, as the temperature plummets. Something is near me, watching, waiting. I dare not call out, but something forces me to take another step. And that's when I hear the scraping sound. Slow, deliberate, like something dragging across the floor. I turn sharply, but again, nothing is there. I press myself against the wall, trying to steady my racing heart, my fingers numb with cold. The whispering starts again, faint at first, but growing louder, more urgent. Leave, now, before it's too late. I freeze, my breath catching in my throat. The voice is familiar, but I don't recognize it. It's filled with desperation, as though the speaker knows something I don't. The air becomes thick, heavy with a sense of impending doom. And then, a door opens. It's a faint creak at first, almost too soft to hear, but then it's undeniable. A room on the far side of the house, previously locked, is now open. The faintest sliver of light spills out from within, beckoning me. Something inside me stirs, an urge to go toward it, to understand what's inside. But every instinct I have screams at me to run, to escape. But I can't. I step toward the door. The floor beneath my feet groans, and I pause. The moment I stop, the temperature plummets again. But this time it's not just cold, it's oppressive. The air feels thick, dense, like I'm walking through a storm of fear itself. The door creaks open wider, and a cold gust of wind pushes past me. My teeth clench, and I brace myself as the light flickers again. The whispers intensify, rising in a chorus of voices, overlapping, urgent. Come closer. You're not alone. We're waiting for you. I can't stop myself. My feet carry me toward the door, despite the growing dread crawling beneath my skin. The room on the other side is eerily quiet, too quiet. No sound, just the oppressive silence that feels wrong. I step inside. And then, I see it. A room, covered in dust and cobwebs. It's an old nursery, but everything is wrong. The wallpaper is peeling, the toys scattered on the floor, broken dolls, cracked and lifeless. And there in the corner is an old crib. Its wooden frame is splintered, its sheets stained with something dark. I take a step forward, and that's when I notice the photographs on the walls. Family photos, faces blurred, scratched out, people who no longer exist. I walk closer, my hands trembling, unable to look away. There's something about these pictures, something unsettling in the way the eyes of the people seem to follow me. The air grows colder still, and then I hear it. A soft rustling sound, like footsteps in the corner of the room. I spin around, but once again, there's nothing there. The whispering grows louder. It's not just voices now, but a cacophony of screams, echoing through the room. I press my hand to my ears, trying to block it out, but I can still hear it, feel it in the pit of my stomach. And then the door slams shut behind me. I whip around, gasping for breath, my heart pounding. There's something moving in the darkness, a shadow at the edge of the room. I don't know what it is, but I can feel its presence, watching, waiting. And then the light flickers once more, revealing the figure standing in the doorway. It's her, the woman from the mirror. Her face is pale, her eyes hollow, her mouth twisted in a sinister grin. She steps closer, her footsteps silent, but I can feel the weight of her presence in every inch of the room. I try to move, to run, but my legs betray me. I'm frozen in place, unable to look away. Her voice is soft, almost a whisper. You should have never come here. Now you belong to the house. The room spins around me, and I can feel myself being pulled into the darkness, the air thick and suffocating. And just as I'm about to scream, the lights go out. Darkness. I can't breathe. The air is thick and heavy, pressing down on me from all sides. Every breath feels like I'm inhaling cold smoke, the chill of the house creeping deeper into my lungs. My heart is pounding in my chest, my hands trembling as they try to grasp anything, but the darkness seems to be swallowing everything. My feet are frozen in place, my mind racing, desperate to find a way out. But I can't move. The silence is so absolute, it's suffocating. Then, a sudden movement in the shadows. I turn, too quickly, straining my eyes, but I see nothing. I hear it again, a sound, soft and unsettling, like the slow creaking of wood underfoot. The darkness feels alive now, aware of my every movement, watching me. The temperature drops even further, and my breath turns to mist, swirling in the cold air. I shiver uncontrollably, but there's no escape from this biting, suffocating cold. And then the whispers return. Low at first, barely audible, like a distant conversation just out of reach. But then they grow louder, clearer, swirling around me, their voices distorted and garbled, as if the house itself is speaking. I can hear my name among them. Leave, now. You should have never come. A sudden chill runs down my spine. My skin prickles with the sensation of being watched. I try to take a step forward, but my feet feel like they're stuck in place, the floorboards creaking ominously beneath me. Every step I take feels heavier, as though something is pulling me down, keeping me from escaping. I look over my shoulder, and that's when I see her. The woman. Her figure stands at the far end of the hallway, pale and gaunt, her eyes wide and empty. There's no expression on her face, only an eerie calm as she stares directly at me. A chill crawls over my skin, and a cold sweat breaks out across my forehead. I can't look away. Her lips curl into a sinister smile, and she begins to move toward me, her steps soundless on the floor. The whispers grow louder, more frantic, urging me to run, to get out before it's too late. My heart is racing now, the pounding so loud I'm certain she can hear it. But I can't move. My legs are frozen, trapped by the weight of her gaze. She takes another step closer. I can feel the cold emanating from her, colder than anything I've ever felt. My breath catches in my throat as I hear her voice, soft but unmistakable. "You're too late. It's already begun." I try to scream, but no sound comes out. The air is thick, suffocating, and I feel my chest tightening. The room begins to spin, the walls bending inward like they're closing in on me. And then there's a sound. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, behind me. I whip around, my eyes wide with terror, but there's nothing there. Just the blackness of the hallway, stretching out, endless and consuming. The whispers intensify. I can't make sense of them anymore. Just fragments of broken words, scattered thoughts, their urgency building. I'm surrounded by them. They're in my head now. My mind feels like it's unraveling, the world slipping away from me, replaced by the terrifying grip of whatever is lurking in the shadows. The light flickers, casting eerie shadows on the walls. But for a brief moment, it's as if the room itself shifts. The floor groans beneath me, as if it's alive. The walls seem to move. The doors that were once closed are now wide open, revealing nothing. A black void that swallows anything and everything that dares to enter. I stumble backward, my body shaking uncontrollably. My legs are weak, my vision blurry, but I feel the pull, the need to understand, to see what's truly happening in this place. Something compels me to move forward, to enter the darkness. I look back at her, and her face has changed. Her smile is gone. Her eyes, empty and hollow, now seem to bleed darkness itself. She reaches out, her fingers long and gnarled, stretching toward me. "You'll stay with me, forever," she whispers. In that moment, the realization hits me. This isn't just a house, it's a trap. A living thing, feeding on fear, feeding on the souls of anyone foolish enough to enter. I'm not just lost in its darkness. I am becoming part of it. The floor shifts beneath my feet, and I feel myself falling into the void. The woman's figure looms closer, her fingers now inches away from my skin. But just as she touches me, the world spins into darkness. I can't feel my body anymore. I can't breathe. The suffocating cold surrounds me, and the whispers are the only sound left in my ears. "You're mine, forever." And then, silence. The wind howled through the gnarled branches of barren trees as the old house loomed ahead, a shadow against the ink-black sky. Its broken shutters rattled in the icy breeze, and the faint creak of its weather-worn porch sounded like a groan of disapproval. The house had been left to rot for decades, its wood warped and peeling, its windows smeared with grime. Yet, despite its state of decay, it exuded a malevolent presence, as though the house itself was alive, waiting. I stood at the edge of the overgrown yard, my breath clouding in the frigid night air. Every instinct told me to turn back, to leave the house to its slumber. But something, curiosity, defiance, or maybe sheer recklessness, pushed me forward. The heavy front door creaked open, the sound echoing like a scream into the vast emptiness beyond. My flashlight flickered as I stepped inside, the beam trembling across the cracked floorboards and sagging walls. The air hit me like a wall, damp, cold, and suffocating, with the faint, sour tang of rot. It felt thick, as though the house didn't want me to breathe. The first step into the foyer sent a low groan through the floorboards, a sound that seemed too deliberate, almost like a warning. The silence that followed was deafening, interrupted only by the faint whistle of wind sneaking through the gaps in the walls. Then I heard it, a faint rustling sound, like something dragging across the floor above me. My heart pounded, each beat echoing in my ears. "It's just the wind," I muttered to myself, my voice trembling. But the rustling continued, growing louder and more deliberate, like footsteps pacing above. I moved cautiously, my flashlight scanning the dusty walls. Picture frames hung crookedly, their glass shattered, the faces in the photographs faded and unrecognizable. As I stepped further, the temperature dropped suddenly, and my breath hung in the air like a ghostly wisp. Then came the whispering. It started as a faint murmur, almost indistinguishable from the sound of the wind. But as I stood frozen, the voices grew louder, overlapping in a chaotic cacophony. My flashlight flickered again, casting shadows that seemed to stretch and writhe on the walls. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice cracking. The whispering stopped abruptly, plunging the house into an oppressive silence. I turned toward the staircase. The sound of a single, deliberate creak made my blood run cold. Slowly, I raised my flashlight, its beam landing on the stairs. A dusty, threadbare carpet ran up the middle, but there was something else, something small, pale, and motionless halfway up. It was a doll, its porcelain face cracked, one eye missing. It hadn't been there before. My chest tightened as a wave of dread washed over me. Before I could take another step, the doll toppled over, tumbling down the stairs with a series of soft thuds, stopping at my feet. I staggered back, my hands trembling. A low, guttural sound came from somewhere deeper in the house, a noise that didn't belong to anything human. The walls seemed to groan, the sound surrounding me, pressing in from all sides. I spun around, desperate to find the source of the noise. My flashlight caught a glimpse of something in the corner of the room. A figure, dark and hunched, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. I blinked, and it was gone. My breath hitched, my legs unsteady as I stumbled backward into the hallway. The whispers returned, louder this time, echoing around me. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows growing darker and more oppressive. And then, a voice. Low, chilling, and right behind me. "You're not supposed to be here." I whipped around, but there was no one there. My flashlight flickered once more before plunging me into darkness. The last thing I heard before the silence swallowed me whole was the sound of something, or someone, breathing right next to my ear. The darkness was absolute, swallowing every sliver of light and leaving me blind to my surroundings. My breathing was shallow, each inhale catching in my throat as the weight of the house seemed to press down on me. The sound of breathing, soft, steady, and too close, sent chills coursing through my body. I fumbled with my flashlight, my hands trembling as I tried to switch it back on. When it finally flickered to life, the beam illuminated the narrow hallway ahead. The walls were cracked and damp, with streaks of something dark trailing down toward the floor. The whispers had stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence that made my ears ring. The only sound was the pounding of my heartbeat, loud and erratic, a reminder that I was very much alive, and very much unwelcome. I turned back toward the staircase, but it was empty now. The doll, the shadow, both were gone. But the air felt different, colder somehow, and heavy with an unseen presence. Then came the sound. A single deliberate knock echoed from the end of the hallway. "Hello." My voice was barely a whisper, quivering with fear. The knock came again, louder this time. It was coming from a door at the far end of the hallway. A door I hadn't noticed before. It was slightly ajar, revealing only darkness beyond. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run out of the house and never look back. But something, curiosity or some inexplicable pull, kept me rooted in place. Against my better judgment, I took a step forward, then another. As I neared the door, the temperature dropped further. My breath clouded in the air, and the flashlight's beam dimmed as though the darkness was consuming it. I reached out, my hand trembling, and pushed the door open. The room beyond was small and cluttered, filled with old furniture covered in dust. A broken mirror hung crookedly on the far wall, its surface so tarnished that it barely reflected anything. But then I saw it. In the corner of the room, partially hidden by the shadows, was a figure. It sat hunched on an old chair, its back to me. Its body was unnaturally thin, the skin stretched tightly over its bones, and its head hung at an odd angle. I froze, every muscle in my body locking up as a wave of dread crashed over me. I wanted to turn and run, but my feet refused to move. Then, slowly, the figure began to turn. Its movements were jerky, as if it were being pulled by invisible strings. When its face came into view, I felt my stomach drop. The eyes were hollow sockets, black and endless, and its mouth was twisted into a grotesque grin. The figure raised one skeletal hand, pointing directly at me. "You shouldn't have come here," it rasped, its voice dry and crackling like dead leaves. The door behind me slammed shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot. My flashlight flickered again, and this time it went out completely, plunging me into darkness. I felt the air shift around me, a cold breeze brushing past my face. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent, circling me like a swarm. And then, from the darkness, came a low, guttural growl. I turned to run, blindly feeling my way through the suffocating dark. But the walls seemed to shift, the space narrowing as though the house itself was alive, trapping me within its grasp. Somewhere behind me, footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate. The growl grew louder, closer, until I could feel its vibration in my chest. I stumbled into something, a table or a chair, and fell hard to the ground. My hand searched frantically for the flashlight, my heart pounding in my ears. When I found it and managed to switch it on, the beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but empty space. The footsteps stopped. The whispers ceased. For a moment, the silence was deafening. Then a single word was whispered into my ear, so close that I could feel the cold breath against my skin. "Run." The word hung in the air. Run. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command, spoken with an authority that chilled my blood. My legs moved before my mind could catch up, propelling me forward into the darkness. The flashlight beam bobbed wildly as I stumbled through the narrow hallway. The house groaned around me, its walls creaking and shifting, the very structure seeming to warp and twist. But the whispers weren't gone. They had changed. Now they were louder, angrier, chasing me through the corridors. Words I couldn't understand filled the air, overlapping in a maddening chorus. Shadows danced at the edges of my vision, darting closer every time I turned. The stairs. I had to find the stairs. I skidded around a corner, nearly falling as the floorboards splintered beneath me. The cold seeped into my bones, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My flashlight flickered, the bulb dimming with every passing second. Then, out of nowhere, the staircase appeared before me, illuminated by the faint moonlight spilling through a broken window. Relief surged through me as I sprinted toward it. But as I reached the first step, a force, unseen but impossibly strong, slammed into me, throwing me backward. I hit the floor hard, the impact knocking the wind from my lungs. The flashlight rolled from my hand, its beam landing on the ceiling. And there it was. Hanging upside down from the ceiling was the figure I had seen in the room, the hollow-eyed creature with the twisted grin. Its limbs moved unnaturally, bending in ways that defied anatomy. It crawled toward me, its sockets fixed on mine, that smile growing wider and impossibly grotesque. I scrambled backward, my hands slipping on the cold, damp floor. The whispers turned to laughter, low, mocking, and cruel. "Leave? You can't leave," the creature rasped, its voice echoing inside my head. "You're part of this now." The walls around me began to ripple, as if they were breathing. Faces emerged from the wood, screaming, writhing, desperate faces that stared at me with empty eyes. I reached for the flashlight, my fingers brushing against its cold metal surface. But before I could grab it, the creature lunged. Its skeletal hand gripped my ankle, icy fingers digging into my flesh. A wave of cold surged through my body, paralyzing me with terror. "No," I screamed, kicking out with all my strength. Somehow, my foot connected, and the creature recoiled with an inhuman shriek. I didn't waste a second. Grabbing the flashlight, I bolted up the stairs, ignoring the way the steps groaned and cracked beneath me. The whispers followed, rising to a deafening crescendo. At the top of the stairs, I found myself in a narrow hallway with no doors, no windows, only a dead end. Panic set in as I turned, the shadows closing in around me. "You can't escape," the creature's voice echoed, taunting me. Desperation clawed at my mind. I slammed the flashlight against the wall, hoping for some hidden door, some way out, but the wall remained solid. Then I noticed something. On the floor, faint and flickering in the beam of the flashlight, was a symbol, a circle with strange, jagged markings. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Instinct took over. I stepped into the circle, the whispers rising to a fever pitch. The air grew colder, the darkness pressing in until I could barely breathe. And then, silence. The house stopped moving. The shadows froze. The whispers ceased. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then the floor beneath me cracked, and the world dropped away. I fell into darkness, tumbling endlessly through the void. The cold was unbearable, the air heavy with the stench of decay. And in the distance, I saw them. Dozens of figures, their hollow eyes glowing in the dark, their twisted grins waiting for me. The last thing I heard was the creature's voice, low and triumphant. "Welcome home." And then, the darkness consumed me. It's late December. The world outside is wrapped in a thick blanket of snow, the kind that makes everything feel still, like time is frozen in its tracks. The bitter chill bites at my skin as I walk through the woods, the wind howling through the barren trees, carrying with it an eerie sense of foreboding. The old house looms ahead, standing like a forgotten relic from another time. It's as if the world has abandoned it, leaving it to rot and decay alone in the wilderness. The windows rattle in the cold wind, the ancient structure creaking with the weight of years spent in neglect. But tonight, for reasons I can't explain, I'm drawn to it. Something about the house pulls at me, urging me to step closer, despite every instinct telling me to turn around and run. I push the gate open with a reluctant squeak and walk up the snow-covered path, my footsteps muffled by the thick layer of frozen earth. The air feels thick, heavy, and oppressive, as if the house itself is watching me, aware of my every move. As I reach the porch, the wind picks up, biting through my coat and sending a shiver down my spine. My breath forms mist in front of me, and I feel the cold creeping deeper into my bones. I stand in front of the door, my hand hovering over the handle. There's something about this place, something off. But I can't turn back now. Something compels me to enter. I push the door open, and the hinges groan in protest, like the house is unwilling to let me in. The smell hits me first, damp, musty air mixed with the faint scent of something sweet and decayed, like old Christmas decorations that have been left out for years. I step inside, and the floor creaks beneath my feet, the sound echoing through the otherwise silent house. The living room is an eerie sight. There's a faded Christmas tree, its lights flickering dimly, casting long, unsettling shadows. The decorations are old, some of them broken. An abandoned snow globe sits on the mantel, its glass cracked, the little figurine inside frozen in time. The tree is crooked, leaning to one side, as if it's too tired to stand up straight. The once festive atmosphere now feels heavy, twisted with time, as if the house itself remembers something dark. I take a few hesitant steps further into the room. The silence is thick, pressing against my ears. Then suddenly, I hear it, soft whispers, like voices in the wind. They sound distant, but they seem to be coming from all around me, growing louder with each passing moment. I stop in my tracks, my heart racing. The whispers are incoherent, but they have a certain rhythm, a certain weight, as if they're calling me. My pulse quickens, and I feel the temperature drop even more. My breath becomes visible, like a cloud of mist. The house, it's alive. I know it. It watches me, feels me. It knows I'm here. I glance around nervously, my mind racing, trying to convince myself it's just the wind or my imagination. But then I hear it. A soft shuffle of footsteps, too heavy to be my own. They're coming closer. My skin prickles with fear. I can feel the presence of something else in the house with me. Something that doesn't belong here. I turn to see nothing. Just the cold, empty walls. But the whispers grow louder, and suddenly, the temperature drops again. I shiver uncontrollably. The house seems to move, shift, the walls groaning under the weight of its own age. The air is thick now, suffocating, and I can barely breathe. Every step I take seems to echo, as if the house is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Then I hear it, a loud creak from upstairs, followed by a soft, eerie laugh. It's distant at first, but it grows louder with each passing second, until it feels as if the sound is coming from right behind me. I spin around, my heart racing, my hands trembling. But there's nothing there. I can't leave. I know I should, but I can't. Something keeps me rooted to this spot, a force stronger than fear itself, pulling me deeper into the house. Suddenly, the lights flicker. For a brief moment, everything goes dark. When the lights come back on, I see it. The reflection of a figure standing just behind me in the hallway. It's me, but not. The eyes are hollow, the mouth twisted in a grotesque grin. I take a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure mirrors my movement, its smile widening with every breath I take. And then it speaks, my voice, but distorted. You shouldn't have come. My body goes cold, my knees weaken as the words echo in my mind. You shouldn't have come. The voice is mine, but it's distorted, hollow, as if it comes from somewhere deep inside the house itself. My heart races, panic surging through me, but my legs refuse to move. I'm rooted to the spot, the reflection of the figure still haunting the hallway behind me. I take a shaky breath, my chest constricting. I force myself to look away from the figure in the mirror. My pulse is deafening in my ears. The house feels alive more than ever. The walls groan as if they're breathing, pressing in on me. The whispers are back, louder now, and the sound of footsteps, soft but deliberate, can be heard coming from the floor above. I try to move, but it's as though the house is holding me here. My legs feel like lead, each step heavy and unsure, as if the very air around me is thick, making it harder to breathe. I turn toward the hallway, the soft glow from the flickering Christmas lights casting distorted shadows on the walls. The laughter I heard before is now replaced with the sound of something much worse, a faint crying, a child sobs. It's coming from upstairs. The hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, and I find myself compelled to climb the creaky staircase, my hand trembling as I grasp the banister. The stairs groan beneath my weight, the sound echoing through the house, reverberating off the walls as if they are alive. I reach the top, and there it is, the source of the crying. The bedroom door is ajar, the only room on this floor that hasn't been touched by time or decay. A soft light flickers inside, casting eerie shadows on the floor. The crying grows louder, more desperate. It sounds so real, so alive. My instincts scream at me to run, to leave, but I can't. I need to know what's happening here. I push the door open slowly, the hinges screeching as if they've never been moved in decades. The room is dim, the only light coming from a small flickering candle on the floor near the window. The shadows are long, twisted, as though they don't belong. And there, in the center of the room, is the source of the sobbing. a broken, tattered old doll sitting upright on a rocking chair. The doll's eyes are wide open, staring blankly into the darkness. The crying stops abruptly. Silence. The room suddenly feels colder. My breath forms mist in the air. I step forward, my eyes fixed on the doll, unable to look away. The air is thick, suffocating. A single thought screams in my mind. Something is wrong with this doll. Then, a loud bang. The door slams shut behind me, trapping me in the room. My heart skips a beat, and I spin around, but the room is still. I rush to the door, trying to open it, but it won't budge. I slam my shoulder against it, again and again, but it's as if it's sealed shut from the other side. I turn back to the doll. It's moved. The doll's head has turned, its blank eyes now fixed on me. I can hear a faint whisper, just a breath above the sound of my own panic. It's calling my name, soft, pleading. Come closer. My body trembles, every fiber of my being screaming for me to leave, but I can't. I step forward, drawn to the doll, to whatever it represents, to the mystery of this house that refuses to let me go. As I near it, I see something that sends a chill straight to my soul. The doll's hand. It's holding a photograph. I reach out, my fingers brushing against the cold porcelain of its hand, and I take the photograph. The image is old, faded, yellowed with age. It shows a family, a man, a woman, and 2 children. They're standing in front of a Christmas tree, smiling. But there's something wrong with the photo. The faces are scratched out, and at the bottom of the photo, scrawled in faded red ink, are the words, "They never left." Suddenly, the room grows unbearably cold. My breath comes out in visible clouds, and I hear the whispers again, louder this time. A voice, clear, unmistakable, and filled with malice, rings out in the silence. "You should have stayed away." I turn, my blood running cold. The door is open now. The hallway beyond is dark, but the shadow of something tall, looming, stretches into the room. I can't see it clearly, but I know it's there. The figure is moving toward me. I try to scream, but my throat is dry. I can't make a sound. The house, it's awake now, and it's coming for me. The air thickens, and the shadows grow longer as the figure advances toward me. I can feel its presence, overwhelming, suffocating, like something ancient and malevolent is closing in, ready to consume me. My body freezes, my limbs unwilling to obey as panic surges through me, paralyzing me in place. I glance frantically at the door, desperate to escape, but it's already closing by itself, inch by inch, as if the house is sealing me in. The figure is almost here. It's tall, impossibly tall, and though I can't make out its features, I can feel the weight of its gaze on me, as if it's watching me with an intelligence that's far too old and cruel to be human. I close my eyes, heart hammering in my chest, and brace for whatever comes next. Suddenly, the room grows unbearably cold, colder than it's ever been. I can see my breath in front of me, a visible mist swirling in the air. And then I hear it, the unmistakable sound of a door creaking open behind me. I spin around in terror. The door to the attic is wide open. I don't know why, but something pulls me toward it. Some invisible force, stronger than my own will, draws me toward the attic. I want to resist, but I can't. I take one slow, reluctant step, then another, until I'm at the base of the stairs. The footsteps of the figure, slow and deliberate, echo behind me, but I can't bring myself to look back. My body moves of its own accord, climbing the stairs to the attic, each step creaking loudly under my weight. The attic is dark, but as I step inside, I see something that stops me cold. On the far side of the room, there's an old wooden chest. It's covered in dust, the edges worn and frayed. I don't know why, but it's calling to me. Something is inside that chest, something I need to see. I approach it slowly, cautiously, every nerve in my body screaming for me to turn around and leave, but I can't stop. I open the chest, the lid creaking loudly as if it, too, is reluctant to reveal its secrets. Inside is a pile of old, tattered clothes, faded and moth-eaten. But underneath them, beneath the clothes, something catches my eye. A small, delicate box. It's ornate, made of dark wood with intricate carvings running along the edges. A lock, ancient and rusted, holds it shut. I reach for the box, my hand trembling, and the moment my fingers touch it, I feel a jolt, as if the house itself is reacting to my touch. I turn the box over, and to my horror, I see that the lock has already been broken open. The box is open. I lift the lid. Inside, there's a single photograph. It's the same photograph, the one from the room below, the one with the family and their faces scratched out. But this time, something is different. There's one more face in the picture, my face. The realization hits me like a punch to the stomach. This isn't just any house. It's my house, or at least, it used to be. The family in the photo. They lived here long before I ever set foot in this place, and the reason their faces were scratched out, they're the ones who never left. They were the ones trapped here, like I am now. They were the ones who died. But why? Why am I seeing myself in that photo? I feel the air grow heavy again, and a whisper fills my ears, sharp and sinister. It's the voice I heard before, the voice that said, "You shouldn't have come." But now, the voice isn't just speaking to me. It's speaking through me. You will stay, just like the others. My heart stops. The voice isn't mine anymore. I turn around quickly, but the attic is empty. The shadow that followed me has disappeared, but the temperature, it's plummeted, and I can't breathe. I try to scream, but my mouth is dry, my body paralyzed with fear. And then, from the corner of the attic, I hear it. The sound of a child's laugh, soft and haunting, like the laughter of someone long gone. A cold hand brushes against my arm. I turn, but there's nothing there. And that's when I understand. The house doesn't just trap people, it absorbs them. It holds their souls, keeps them in this eternal, suffocating darkness. The family in the picture, the people who lived here before, their souls are still here, waiting, like I am. And I am the next one. The next to become a part of the house. The last thing I hear is the sound of the attic door slamming shut behind me. The darkness closes in. And I understand, too late, that I will never leave. The house has claimed me.
If you enjoyed this terrifying tale, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a chilling story. Your support helps us create even more thrilling content, and we're so grateful to have you with us on this terrifying journey. Thanks for watching, and remember, once you subscribe, the nightmare never ends.